Find a globe, spin it. Look for the Caribbean, and somewhere off the coast of Venezuela, find a speck so small you could cover it with a fingertip. That speck has fewer people than a single average city neighborhood, 156,000. And in the summer of 2026, that speck did something no nation its size had ever done in the history of the sport. It walked onto the biggest stage on Earth, lined up across from giants, and refused to be a footnote. This is the story of Curaçao. Remember that number. We will come back to it. Let that number breathe for a second, because it is hard to hold. 156,000 people. A World Cup squad of 23 is drawn from that. Every prior debutante, every romantic underdog you have ever cheered for, came from a country many times larger. No nation this small had ever qualified for a FIFA World Cup. Not one. So when the draw was made and the name appeared on the screen between footballing superpowers, people did a double take. They reached for maps. They asked the question the whole planet would soon be asking. Where exactly is Curaçao? Here is the answer. It is a small island in the southern Caribbean, sun-bleached and salt-washed, with painted houses stacked along the water and the trade winds bending the trees. For most of its modern life, it was a footnote on someone else's atlas, a place you flew over not to. It has no vast academies, no billion-dollar leagues, no production line of professionals. What it has is an obsession. Football here is played on cracked courts and dusty lots, between the heat and the sea. And from that thin, sun-baked soil, against every law of probability, a World Cup team would somehow grow. But here is the secret behind the fairy tale, and it is worth telling honestly. Curaçao did not build this team from the island alone. For generations, its people scattered. They moved across the ocean to the Netherlands, raising children in Dutch cities, in Dutch academies, in Dutch football, and those children grew into players. The Caribbean Dutch diaspora became a hidden bloodline, a network of talent spread across 2 continents, but bound by one tiny island home. One by one they were called, not to chase a passport of convenience, but to wear the colors their parents and grandparents carried across the sea. And there was one more thing, a piece of timing that history will argue about for years. The World Cup had grown. The tournament expanded to 48 teams, swinging open a door that had been bolted shut for the smallest nations. More places, more dreamers given a path. Cape Verde walked through it, Jordan walked through it, Uzbekistan walked through it, and so did Curaçao. Critics called it dilution. Romantics called it justice. But whatever you called it, the door was open, and a tiny island with a scattered family of players stood right in front of it, ready to run. So they ran. Qualifying is where dreams usually go to die for nations like this, ground down over long campaigns by bigger, richer, deeper teams. Curaçao should have been a name others beat on their way through. Instead, match by match, they refused to break. They held their nerve in the moments that snap smaller teams in half. And when the final whistle of their campaign sounded, the impossible arithmetic was done. A World Cup ticket for a town-sized nation. The smallest nation in the entire history of the tournament had qualified, and an island that most of the planet could not place exploded. Picture the homecoming. Streets you could walk end to end in an afternoon suddenly flooded. Flags out of every window, car horns and pots and pans and tears on faces that had never dreamed they would see this. For a nation this small, a World Cup is not a sporting event. It is a national reckoning. A moment that rewrites how a people see themselves. They were no longer the speck on the globe. They were going to the World Cup. And then the draw landed, and the romance turned terrifyingly real. Group E, and waiting there, 4-time world champions, Germany. Let the matchup sink in. On one side, Germany. 4 stars on the shirt, a nation of 80 million, generations of trophies, a machine built to win. On the other, Curaçao. A debutante, a team most neutrals had only just learned to pronounce. On paper, it was not a contest. It was a formality, a warm-up for the Giants, a result already written in everyone's notebook before a ball was kicked. The whole football world expected a procession. What they got instead, for one unforgettable stretch of the opening game, was something nobody saw coming. The Giants pushed, as Giants do, and then the impossible flickered into life. Against the 4-time world champions, against 80 million people and a century of pedigree, the smallest nation in World Cup history found a goal, an equalizer. Curaçao level with Germany. Read that again, slowly, the way the scoreboard read it that night. The island that the planet could not find on a map was drawing with one of the most decorated teams the sport has ever produced. In that single suspended moment, every law of football was hanging upside down, and a whole island held its breath. Somewhere, a 40-year-old idea of what is possible was rewritten in real time. Back home, the island detonated. Strangers grabbed strangers. Grown men wept into their hands. For that stretch of the opening game, 156,000 people were not underdogs or debutantes or a quirk of an expanded format. They were equals, level with Germany on the biggest stage the sport has. This was the moment the whole fairy tale had been building toward, the payoff for every dusty pitch and every parent who carried this island across an ocean. The dream was not just alive. For one breathless passage, the dream was winning. But fairy tales and football do not keep the same hours. Germany is what it is for a reason. The 4-time champions did not panic. They steadied, regathered, and remembered the cruel truth of this sport. Over 90 minutes, depth wins, class wins. The thinnest margins between giant and minnow are not about heart, of which Curaçao had an ocean. They are about the 20th player, the third gear, the relentless quality that a nation of 80 million can summon, and a town-sized island simply cannot. And slowly, then all at once, the night began to turn. And turn it did, hard. The dam that had held for that one glorious stretch finally gave way, and the champions poured through. The goals came, then kept coming, each heavier than the last. By the end, the scoreboard told a brutal, lopsided story. The equalizer could no longer soften. Germany 7, Curaçao 1. The fairy tale, in the cold arithmetic of the final whistle, had been put firmly back in its place. This is the part the highlight reels rarely linger on. The same night that gave the island its greatest moment handed it one of the heaviest reminders of the gap. When the group stage was done, the math was final and unkind. Bottom of Group E, 1 point from 3 games. Eliminated, the shortest of World Cup stories, over almost before the world had finished learning to spell the name. And here is where the cynics sharpen their knives. A team this small, beaten this heavily, knocked out. Was this ever a fairy tale at all, they ask, or just a mismatch dressed up as romance? A speed bump for the real contenders, a number on the wrong end of a 7. It is a fair question, so let us answer it. Here is the case for the cynics, stated honestly. A 48-team World Cup lets in nations who get blown away. 7-1 is not competition, they say. It cheapens the crown, turns the group stage into a parade where giants stretch their legs against teams never really invited to win. And there is truth in that. But here is the other side. Sport is not only a measuring contest for the best, it is a story the whole world gets to be part of. And a tiny Caribbean island, level with Germany, is not a flaw in the World Cup. It is the point of it. Because legacy is not measured in a single scoreline. Somewhere on that island tonight, there is a kid on a cracked court, ball at their feet, who watched their nation stand level with the 4-time world champions and thought, that could be me. That seed does not show up on the 7-1, it shows up in 10 years, in 20. Curaçao did not leave the World Cup with points, it left with proof. Proof that the smallest place on the map can share a pitch with the largest, and for one shining stretch of a single night refuse to know its place. That outlasts any defeat. So spin the globe one last time. Find the speck off the coast of Venezuela, the one you could cover with a fingertip. 156,000 people. The smallest nation in World Cup history. They came, they stood level with giants, they were sent home 7-1, and they changed nothing about the trophy and everything about the dream. The score is what the record books keep. The fairy tale is what the world keeps. And the only question left is the one we started with. Was this island a mismatch the World Cup should fear, or the reason it is worth having at all? You decide.